What's that? Good evening, everyone. I'm Councilwoman Joanne Ryan. Welcome to the Committee on Finance regular meeting. It is Tuesday, March 22nd. It is 5:36. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I'd like to ask the clerk to read the roll call, please.
Chairwoman Joanne Ryan.
Present.
Vice Chairwoman Carmen Castillo.
Present.
Councilman Nicolas Narducci.
Here.
Councilwoman Helen DeAnthony.
Here.
Councilman James Taylor.
Here.
We have 5 present. We have a quorum.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, folks, let me see who we have. I have Councilman Goncalves, I see, is with us this evening. I see Treasurer Lombardi is with us. Who else? I can't see any other council people. Okay. He's on the committee too. Am I all set? Did they hear me before?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, folks. Madam Clerk, please read item 1 into the record.
Yeah.
Okay.
Item number 1, resolution authorizing approval of the following amended contract award by the Board of Contract and Supply in accordance with section 2126B1 of the Code of Ordinance. Iparametrics, $270,520. Policy in the City Council 31722, Council President EDOC by request.
Thank you very much. Okay, folks, first committee members, you have the package before you that you received for this committee, correct? Everybody, committee members, I see everyone nodding, very good.
Yes.
We have, thank you, Leader. We have 2 exhibits for this item. I'd like to start by just entering them right away into the record. So may I have a motion? Exhibit 1 is an agreement for financial disaster recovery and grant management and administrative services. Exhibit 1, motion made by Vice Chair Castillo, seconded by
Second motion.
Deputy Majority Leader Narducci. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. We have Exhibit 1 entered into the record. Exhibit 2 is an agreement, amendment to the agreement for financial disaster recovery and grant management and administrative services between Iparametrics and the City of Providence. May I have a motion to enter this contract amendment into the record as Exhibit 2? May I have that motion?
Move.
Motion made by Vice Chair Castillo, seconded by Leader Taylor. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Okay, so we have both exhibits to item 1 on who do we have? No, that's okay. Who do we have from the city that would like to talk about this contract?
Hi, good evening, Chairwoman. It's Diana Perdomo, Chief of Policy on the Mayor's Office. I'm also here accompanied by Jeff Stevens, who is at Iparametrics and who we've been working with on the FEMA reimbursement work and also the ARPA grant administration support.
Okay. Who would like to present on this?
So I can provide a very brief overview, and if you have any specific questions for Jeff, he has been providing us a lot of support around not only our FEMA reimbursement work, but also in getting us started around ensuring that any of the investments put forward for the American Rescue Plan are compliant to the guidelines provided by the Treasury, and has also helped us do some other work with regard to setting up some programs. So we first entered a contract with Iparametrics to initially look at the FEMA work. We had, this was started by our previous Chief Operating Officer, Sabrina Solares-Han. We went out to bid, and Jeff Stevens' firm, the firm he works for, Iparametrics, was selected to help us secure as much reimbursement through the FEMA disaster recovery program. On this, what I am here today, or what we are seeking today, is post a prior amendment where we added some resource to the contract and expanded the contract to ensure that grant management piece for disaster or relief funding provided by state or the federal government. We had sought a prior amendment to increase the contract, and we are here today to ask for an additional amendment to that contract to really capture the full scope of work that Iparametrics team is doing with us. They have been providing us with support, as I mentioned, all of the programs put forward from the American Rescue Plan. The first ordinance submitted to you all in the second has been done a review by the Iparametrics team. They've helped us identify where specifically in the guidelines each program has been is compliant with the Treasury rules. And they've helped us also develop some other pieces. So for instance, the small business grant program that was approved in the first ordinance, Jeff Stevens' team has helped us set up that grant application portal and is also supporting the city around any questions that are coming through applicants, provided staff hours to help field those questions, working with the council office, the staff here to make sure that program is running, and is continuing to help us at this moment to set up our reporting structures for how we are going to report on the funds to the federal government. So with that, I'm happy to pass it along to Jeff. Should you have, you want to introduce yourself, Jeff, speak about the contract broadly, and I'm sure the council may have some questions.
Before we do that, if I may, so Diana, could you explain, so you talked about Iparametrics' role in PEMA, and that is how our relationship started, is that correct? Just to clarify.
Yes.
And that was bid out, correct?
It was bid out. In the bid also, it was broad to allow for recovery support overall. And so the contract that we ultimately signed after that first award did include relief grant management as well, and administrative support around state and federal grants. So the contract included both FEMA. The larger amount of the award was appropriated to FEMA, but it did have an allowance for grant administration under recovery and relief funds.
Okay, we don't have, Madam Clerk, do we have anyone from the solicitor's office on our call?
Yes, Mr. Chevery is available by phone right now.
Okay, all right, he is with us though, right?
He is.
We may need his opinion, but let's just continue on. Okay, so the first, you did go out for an RFP. It was for the PEMA disaster recovery, and that was 125. That was back 5/10/2021, correct? And then there was an amendment to that?
Yes, so we sought, we had sought approval through the Board of Contract and Supply on July 19th. For an amendment for $24,000, and that was specifically to the American Rescue Plan.
Okay, so just for my committee's edification and understanding, and everyone on this call, what is before this body this evening is Amendment 2, which is the 27520, which is being requested in addition to what has already been paid, correct? By contract, correct? I don't hear
Yes,
anybody.
yes, this is
Okay.
in addition.
Treasurer Lombardi, I see your hand up. Treasurer Lombardi?
Yes, Madam Chair, if you want me to just add a few comments in here, if you're ready.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So the original bid, and I believe the amendment, was $149,000. This change order is $270,520. It's 182% change order. So 1.8 times the original even amendment. So it's probably even higher than the original contract. That just brings concern that, you know, if you're more than doubling the size of the contract, I think that we should probably have gone out to bid, or should go out to bid. If the original contract did have these services, and I'm not saying that they had that this company can't handle it, but maybe a different company would have been involved had it been this size contract. So again, it's just 1.8 times the original contract. Just brings concern.
Thank you. Would the administration like to respond to that?
Sure. So, and I know Jeff's hand is raised right now. I'll just say briefly, I think one reason why this occurred is that we, I think, do not anticipate the volume of work needed for the small business grant program in particular. And so we actually, up to this date, through the administration support, have actually been in well alignment around the $24,000 originally awarded. We, in working with the council, the administration, and staff, we're under some tight deadlines to move forward on some of the small business relief programs. And in order to administer that quickly, we continued our work with Jeff Stevens' team and Iparametrics, and are seeking now to hope to amend that so that we can continue working with this team and continue to provide that program. Jeff, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, and just
Hold on,
I'm sorry.
Diana, please. Treasurer Lombardi, your hand is up again. Do you want to follow up on that?
I do. Yeah, I understand. I'm a little off that you would say that this contract, that this amendment has to do with the small business grant program, but that's okay. So you are, first of all, I assume you've already authorized the spending, even though the Board of Contract and Supply did not authorize you to do it. The second thing is, I've already emailed you and said that the fees that you are moving forward with seem to be extremely high. $168,000 approximately to build out a program that has given out, I don't know, $500,000, $700,000. Seems a little ridiculous to me, but you opened the door to that. So I'm concerned again about the volume. If that was an issue, why didn't we go out to bid immediately? Why didn't we do other things at that time? That was what, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, 5 months ago?
Yeah, I understand, and I recognize that we should have put this forward much earlier and not at this amount. And I own that. I will say we did have some time where we were, bringing in appropriate staff to support us, particularly on the fiscal side around American Rescue Plan. And there was a transition from our chief operating officer to our new chief operating officer who was previously administering this program. Jeff and I have spoken about this, and we also received some, requested documentation in terms of, the amounts that this would go out a little bit late. So I understand that. With regard to the small business program, I do think that we were working within a contract allowed for us to have them do beyond just FEMA reimbursement. And as I mentioned previously, we were under a tight deadline. The program, with the small business program, recognizes well, we wish that there were more resources going out. Currently, the program is quite restrictive in how it allows for us to offer grants directly to the business community and small business community. And we would love to change some of those requirements so that we can have more dollars go out. And we've, requested that conversation with, actually with you, Treasurer, to see if we can modify the program based and come to an agreement with council so that we can get more funding out. Part of the portion of the small business grant program has really been some hours of support provided by Iparametrics trained to vet applicants and ensure that they're eligible for the award. And this, in the beginning took a considerable amount of time, and it is based off the hourly rates and noted within the existing contract.
Okay. Treasurer Lombardi, the auditor, our auditor would like to weigh in if it's okay. I'd like to give her an opportunity since she's had her hand up for a bit now. Ms. Costa.
Well, I do agree with Jim that this item should have been bid out again. He was hired under a different department for a different purpose. I'm not saying he's not qualified. I'm not saying he wouldn't have the opportunity to bid. But since that time, there's a lot of vendors out there that would be interested in doing this, And that only drives the price down. It encourages bidding wars and people will compete more. And that being said, Jim, it's 216% of the original bid. The original bid was 125, this is 270, this is a 216% increase. This is more than the original bid, the original scope. Jeff, this is no reflection on you. This is a reflection on how this administration handles Board of Contracts and supply matters. You are a contracted vendor, and I'm sure your work is good. I'm not questioning that at all. I'm questioning the way the administration continues to arbitrarily make these contracts without approval first. So my recommendation for this council is to put this item back out to bid and bring it back to the table. And Jeff, by all means, you have every opportunity to bid on it. I'm not excluding you at all. It is no reflection on you. This is a technical issue on the way the administration processes their awards.
Thank you very much. Jeff, I see your hand is up, and I think that the auditor has articulated our position quite well. This isn't about you. This is a matter of proper bidding. So I don't want to offend you. This isn't about the work that you have done for us or the work that we hope that you will do for us. This is about the city council making sure that we cross our T's and dot our I's and follow appropriate procurement practices. It is alarming, as the auditor has expressed, as well as the treasurer, that there's a change order in an amount of 216% of the original contract. So it's a bit above the pale. Council committee members, anyone want to weigh in on this or offer thoughts, concerns?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Okay, I think I saw Councilwoman Anthony's hand up, and I do see Councilman Narducci. Let's go with Councilwoman Anthony first.
Thank you. I too have a concern. I know Iparametrics, I think they've probably been doing a good job on the on compliance, which I thought was the reason we hired them originally. I think we should be able to have Jeff speak if he wants to address the council. My concern right now is the small business grant program. I'm quite alarmed. I think we need to have a separate meeting on how much money we've spent and how little funds have gone out. I mean, this has been my concern since the beginning on this particular item. And I'm just really disappointed if we can't get this right. How do we expect to do what else we're going to do under ARPA? So I would like to focus, I don't know if we need to have a separate meeting on the small business grant program, but I think we need a full shaking out on what's happened with that, the cost and how many people have applied and the criteria and the whole 9 yards, because I find that horribly alarming.
Councilwoman, immediate need budget is on our docket for discussion this evening. It's item number 2. We can flesh that out a little bit further. Right now, we're talking about an RFP and purchasing guidelines and the like. So let's hold on that.
I understand that, but this is all, it's also creep. It's a scope of services creep that's going on too. I mean, this is just kind of a continuum of scope of services, and this is part of what they've been doing. So I think I just want to raise my concern.
Okay, and we'll discuss that further on under item 2. Council Senior Majority Leader Nick Narducci.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I would have to be in full support of what Jimmy Lombardi and our internal audit had stated. This process should go back to the bidding table, especially for the amount of the increase. And I will not support moving this forward tonight. I will support sending it back with the Board of Contract and Supplies, only because we're the ones on the hook now as the Finance Committee. As we all know, as other things in the past, once our committees pass out things, the administration has always washed their hands with it, and then it always becomes the council's problem. And again, I find it proper that we dot all our I's and cross all our T's with this particular matter. And again, this has nothing to do with Mr. Stevens or the organization itself. It's got to do with the way the process was not followed up. by the administration. Thank you,
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair.
Thank you, Senior Leader. Councilman Goncalves, you have your hand up?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can wait until item number 2. I don't want to belabor the points that have already
Thank you.
been made.
Okay. Anyone else? Diana, you have your hand up? Do you want to offer any thoughts? Or are you all set?
Well, yeah, I just want to clarify one point that was made earlier. Just to be clear that the contract that we went forward to was not with one specific department. It was a citywide contract. I think it was mentioned earlier that it was specific to FEMA, but it was not something that was written specific to FEMA. I don't know if that changes the conversation at all, but I just wanted to make sure that that was clear.
You have a question? Auditor Costa?
Diana, have we made any payments to Iparametrics?
Not for the ARPA work yet. I do have an invoice currently to be paid, but it's within the $24,000 allotment already currently. And we have not paid them.
So since May of 2021, they've only done $24,000 worth of work, and we have not yet executed it. They have not received a check from the city of Providence.
I will clarify that. No, so they have been working on the small business grant program. In addition to that, we have not reimbursed them yet for this first invoice. We received about $17,000 for the support around the grant administration program. There is also additional resources invoice that they put forward around the small business grant program, which is why we're seeking the amendment so that we can fill that.
So, Madam Chair, my question is, if we haven't paid them $149,000 and we're only due them $24,000, do we need this much money? That's just my question to think about. That's all. Thank you.
Very good. Good points. Okay, with that, I think the committee, based on the recommendation of the auditor and our treasurer, I think I'd like to entertain a motion to deny this matter and to the full council to request that it be bid out. And again, this isn't about Jeff. You do great work. I've spoken with you. This is a matter of the city following appropriate purchasing guidelines. So may I have that motion?
Motion made, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Senior Leader Narducci, seconded by Vice Chair Castillo and Taylor. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Okay, so this item we recommend deny to go back to Board of Contract. Okay. All right, item 2. Madam Clerk, would you kindly read item 2 into the record?
Yes. Updates and discussion relative to immediate needs of the American Rescue Plan Act budget.
Okay. Do we have, I have exhibits on this one, correct? Thank you. Let me just get that. Okay. So we have a number of exhibits. So I would like to ask I'd like to entertain motions to enter. Can I do them all at once, Madam Clerk?
So moved.
Okay. We have items 3 through 9. I will read them and then ask for the motion. Memo to Chairwoman Ryan dated 3/22. Oh, sorry. Memo to Chairwoman Ryan is the first exhibit 3. Exhibit 4, response from administration to memo to Joanne Ryan, Chairwoman Ryan. Exhibit 5, APR expenditures. Exhibit 6, APR RWP Gateway. Exhibit 7, Youth and Broadband Program Update. Exhibit 8, Water Fire State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds Agreement. Exhibit 9, Water Fire Invoices. Is that it? May I have that? May I have a motion to enter exhibits 3 through 9 as
So moved.
read? Motion made by Vice Chair Castillo, seconded by Leader Taylor. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I have it. Motion carries. Okay, we have item 2 before us. And we have a number of exhibits, which is great because we didn't have this information last time we met. And I want to thank Diana. Thank you very much for making sure the committee has all the exhibits in front of them, basically asking where we are on the spend. It's been a year, and right at the beginning of this month, I thought that it would be appropriate for us to revisit what we've approved, where we're at with it, and talk about the programs, because obviously we're all hoping to accomplish the same thing. We want to make sure that we're providing relief as needed, where needed, and that we're doing it as expeditiously as possible. Committee members, does everyone have the package that I provided or we spoke of and have entered into the record, exhibits 3 through 9?
I do, Madam Chair.
Okay, and I think that the biggest presentation is the opera expenditures, and that's exhibit 5. So I would like basically, I think, to follow, do you think it makes sense, auditor, to follow this spending line item?
Yes, because it's difficult, you can't compare that to the ordinance, so yes.
Okay, so instead of following the ordinance, folks, let's follow the exhibit 5 spending worksheet, which is a roll-up of the item that was funded, the amount, the budget amount, the spend on it, the estimated spend, and the balance on those accounts. So who from the administration will be presenting on this? Is that Diana? Will you?
Yeah, so I'm happy to run us through this. Also on the line is Laura Bridge, who has been hired as the city's fiscal specialist and who prepared this report. I'll note that Laura's expectation going forward, we've discussed providing these reports on a regular basis to the internal auditor. And so if this format works well, we're happy to continue doing it this way. But you know, it would be a joint effort between myself and Laura to run through this document.
Okay, so let's talk about the first one, youth and family broadband. $1 million was allocated through the immediate need budget over a year ago. Where are we with that?
Right. One of the exhibits included within today as well is a brief presentation from Jim Silveria on the broadband program, as he was called specifically to speak to that. So I can give you an overview, but if you'd like him to give you more detail, he can. So the first portion.
Why don't you start with the overview, and if Laura wants to tell us about whatever monies are allocated, and then if Mr. Silveria can give us the presentation, that'd be great. How's that sound? Okay.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so this program is intended to address 2 needs. The first is to provide Wi-Fi broadband access in areas that it does not currently have access to across the city, and to more specifically reach youth and families. So we're looking at parks, public spaces, near recreation centers, etc. The second portion of this program is intended to reach the hardest, the families that we know in Providence that do not currently have broadband access. Jeff can provide more detail on that, but I'll just very high level. There is approximately, according to our census, families who make under $20,000 a year, about 41% do not have broadband access in their home. So we will be using the remaining of these funds to RFP out to actually have local providers help access or provide that broadband within homes. What's presented here is the immediate spend has been on what we can do more quickly. So the team has been assessing parks, has been looking at recreation centers, has been looking at a rink downtown, for example, the skating rink, to see where we can amplify existing broadband into Wi-Fi and cover more spaces. So this first portion is a contract with Cox Communication to do the phase 1 of that work. We ran a pilot with the the skating rink over the holidays to ensure that we can utilize our existing service and technology to be able to amplify Wi-Fi and create a public access to Wi-Fi. So that is what we will be using, more specifically that 185. And actually, we're looking to increase that to expand into a phase 2 so we can get more parks access.
Great. So the first spend was in June on that, 185.7?
Oh, well, I'm sorry, Laura, do you want to speak to that? You should jump right in.
Yeah, the June is anticipated spend in this year. So that's just how I'm calculating what we expect to spend by the end of this fiscal
So it
year.
hasn't been, okay.
No, zero
I
funds
see.
spent to date. And actually, when I put this together, I thought it would be 185,000 in this year, but since then it's been changed to 10,000 expected spend by the end of this fiscal year.
Say that again. You think that it's going to be how much by the end of the fiscal year?
10,000. When I put this report together, I thought it would be 185,000, but at this point, I believe it's going to be 10,000 spent by the end of this fiscal year.
Okay. Councilman Narducci? You have your hand up?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes. So I guess I'm kind of confused, Laura. Your estimated spend was 185,000. We only spent 10,000. So the estimated balance should be more than 814,000. If I'm doing my math right. And I guess what's a question I have, I guess, for the spending period, Madam Chair, if I may. Do we give these organizations a timeline that they have to spend the money by? Because I think that was one of our main concerns earlier, was finding out exactly where the ARPA funding is going. Like we do say youth and family broadband, and we do have amounts, but we still don't know what organizations they're serving moving forward. I mean, you did name a few, but again, it's already, the numbers aren't jiving, as we know. So I would like to know, what are we doing moving forward with the balance that has not been spent, and are we got to make sure now that we change the estimated balance because of 100,000 of the estimated spend was not spent.
So Councilman, if you don't mind, I can start and then Laura can fill in some of the information. So
Please.
Jim. So just to clarify, we have allocated $1 million to this program. The American Rescue Plan dollars is a grant program that runs for a span of 5 years. So we actually have until the end of 2024 to spend these funds. We have to, and I'll say, that seems like a long timeline, but it does take some time to set up, what is our strategy? Where are we putting out these resources? Where specifically in parks or areas that would be best utilized? And then we have to think about what contracts we have available, whether we can add on to those contracts or go to bid. So the process can take some time. For this $1 million program, Jim Silveria has been working with the council and council staff around, how do we identify the most appropriate parks and locations? We have I believe we just signed, Jim, I think that's right, the contract with Cox Communications that originally was for the whole amount, $185,710 to be able to have Wi-Fi service in a number of parks throughout the city. The reason why Laura is saying the amount is actually going to be 10 by the end of this fiscal year, reminder, we actually have a lot more time than just the fiscal year to spend these dollars, but the contract that we signed will go over fiscal years. And so from the timeline of which what we expect to spend in this fiscal year, my understanding is only $10,000 of that $185,710. So Jim, did I describe that accurately? Anything you want to add?
Diana, that's correct. As you said, we've been negotiating with Cox to get the contract in place. And since we recently signed it, Cox is estimating with their workload and being able to roll out the hardware for Wi-Fi in the parks and to be able to get the program up and running, they're looking at kind of a late spring rollout. So it's a 36-month contract that we have. We're estimating it's about $180,000, $183,000 over the course of 36 months. There is some upfront expenses, and then we'll be taking on the monthly service charges for the broadband at these locations. So $10,000 in the remainder of this fiscal year, and then from Then on, we'll be spending down the remainder monthly.
Thank you. Just a quick question, Diana, you said 5-year spend. Is it, is it committed funds or is it spent funds in 5 years? What's the rule on that?
It has to be fully spent within 5 years, but committed within 3.
Okay,
And I'll-
great.
And I'll also note that, you know, things are not always guaranteed. And we are getting a lot of information still from the Treasury, and even what is happening at the federal government. So one thing I'll note is that I don't know how many folks were following the omnibus bill last week. There was actually a concern that they they were planning on pooling $7 billion of state local recovery funds, unobligated funds. Thankfully, the Senate did not allow for that to happen, so that did not land in the bill, but we did see some reductions in other areas like CDBG. So at this moment, I'm hearing even just from the federal government that there's a potential to pull back unobligated funds. Thankfully, they haven't done that, but it's possible. But the idea is that we have to commit the funds to program within 3 years and have them fully spent within 5.
Thank you very much. Auditor Costa was before Councilwoman Anthony. We'll just go in that order.
Thank you. I'll be really quick, Councilman Anthony. I just want the committee to know and all the council members know that my office has reviewed these numbers. We are in agreement with these numbers. We have no issues with these numbers at all. But Diana, what I think is very important to explain is the way that we reimburse these the recipients. It is, we do not give the money up front, which is kind of difficult for the purposes we're trying to do at some point. So when we're saying intermediate needs, this money didn't fall out, like we didn't write a check for them the next day when this passed. They have to meet certain criteria. So I don't think, I know I didn't understand that. So I don't know if that might be something that the council would like to be made aware of.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Thank you. That does help. Diana, do you want to explain that a little bit more? Because that was confusing and that it appears that there's a delay, but it is the process that you have to follow, right?
Absolutely. And it really is to each specific program, but really what is occurring is that the Treasury, the federal government has taken some time in putting out the rules and regulations, what we need in reporting and compliance and all of that. That, you know, I think in my first presentation to you all, I shared that we created a document, procedures guidebook, essentially for the staff that really outlined all of these pieces and pointed to the Treasury document so that this was all very clear. We did not get our reporting compliance until November, and the final rule came out in January. So as we were constructing contracts, you know, we had to think about all of those provisions and being able then, after contracting appropriately to the guidelines provided by the federal government, to then follow with reimbursement. So that specifically happened for like water, fire, and Providence Center. Those are reimbursements. The programs are running, but we had to go through the contracting phase before we could get them the funds back.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Councilwoman Anthony, you have your hand up.
Yes, I was just going to talk to Jim for a minute, ask Jim a question, if that's all right, about, was Cox the only one that responded to the, I assume this was an RFP?
Jim, are you Silveria? Mr. Silveria, is the question directed to Mr. Silveria?
It is, or whoever can answer that. I'm just concerned about their capacity to deliver.
So the contract for the Wi-Fi portion of the broadband service throughout the city parks, that we selected Cox off a blanket contract, which I'm told is allowed under the opera guidelines and contracting guidelines. So what we're looking for, this is a relatively small scope of work. The first round, we have, I believe, 5 locations that will be installing some equipment at some parks and playgrounds around the city. These are locations that Cox has confirmed they have service. They have equipment that they can attach to their service lines and get the Wi-Fi service up and running quickly.
And may I just ask the 5 parks?
I think we're getting a presentation, right, Mr. Silverio? Would
Yes.
it be- okay, do you want to give the 5 parks quickly, or you want to move into your presentation?
Either way, I can tell you that the ones that are up right now are New Constituted, Hill Park, Blackstone Park, George West, Columbia, Halloween, and Joseph Williams Park. So I'm sorry that I misspoke earlier. This is 6, which are in the initial phase.
Okay, let's allow Mr. Silveria to make his presentation. And could you please be brief, because we've got a lot to cover tonight. Jim, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Okay, so some of this, thanks for having me on here. This is the program update that we prepared for Youth and Broadband. As Diana mentioned, the program goals are to provide broadband service to our community, focusing on the households with an annual income below $20,000. We found through our research that about 41% or around 6,000 of these households do not have broadband access. So we've come up with two programs to address this gap. One would be about 2/3 of the funds out of the $1 million, about 2/3 is going to be dedicated to a partner organization.
Can I just
1/3
interrupt, Jim? For
Sure.
my committee's sake, this is Exhibit 7 in your packets, Exhibit 7. Please continue.
Okay. And 1/3 will be dedicated to expanding broadband in public spaces. So this is a proposed Wi-Fi locations that we're going to be locating throughout the city. And I want to be upfront. This is a combination of funding sources and programs that we're putting together here. So the yellow locations throughout the map are the public outdoor Wi-Fi in phase 1. These include the 6 parks, which we've mentioned. They also include a number of recreation centers, which we're funding under a separate grant to bring public Wi-Fi inside and outside broadcast around the rec centers, as well as the skating rink and in downtown area immediately adjacent to that. So we do have Wi-Fi up and running at the rink now, and we're looking to expand that into Kennedy Plaza in Burnside Park.
Madam Chair, just a quick question for Jim.
Yes, yes, please. Councilman Narducci, please.
Thank you. Jim, just how did we, I mean, the rec centers is different, but how did we pick what parks we're having these Wi-Fi set up in?
Well, we've worked with our parks department. We worked with the council group. We worked with our administration and our recreation departments to try to come up with a longer list of priorities across the city where Wi-Fi service would be, is really most needed and would be readily available through the Cox program.
Right, because I'm looking in, I don't see anything at all in Ward 4.
Okay, well, I can certainly check on that. To be honest with you, that this first round was really intended to be a pilot where we had the Cox service readily available. That's why we picked the first 6 parks that Cox thought that they could get the system up and running. And from there, we do plan on expanding further across the city.
Because we have a school over here, Isaac Hopkins Middle School, and the parks behind it are used quite often from the kids themselves.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact the school already has the Wi-Fi, so I don't know if there's something we can work in. But
Well,
I would
I think you'll be pleased.
appreciate Ward 4 being looked at somehow, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I think you'll be happy to hear that's actually in our round 2 of the Wi-Fi program.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I would agree with you, Councilman Narducci. It's a little light on the top there. And I do see that some of the yellow and blue overlap each other in a number of spots. So I think the objective is obviously to get as much distribution as possible. Councilman Goncalves, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry to be parochial here too, but I'm curious about phase two, the blue marker there. Is that for India Point Park or is that George Arujo? I'm just curious about that.
So phase two includes India Point Park.
Okay, and the reason why I bring that up is because George Arujo is close to Vartan Gregorian School, which is also close to the Fox Point Manor, and those are low-income residents that live there. So I would just urge the administration to look at that more closely as opposed to India Point Park.
Okay. So
Can I ask, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Councilman. Are you all set with that?
I'm all set. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. I just would like to ask that, can this map be edited at this juncture? Where are we with this? Because what I'm hearing from Senior Leader Narducci and Councilman Goncalves is there may be a desire to have different locations. I'm sure there was a rubric used and you kind of expressed why those dots are where they're at. But can we have can the council provide additional input at this juncture to maybe move some of these locations, or are these locations set in stone at this point? Where are we?
Well, I can tell you that the contract for the first 6 locations has been signed. Cox is in the planning process to locate their equipment out there now. So we would like to move forward with the first 6 locations. The other locations that you see in yellow include the recreation centers. So we have 11 rec centers plus the headquarters, which are also going to be completed in our overall first round of Wi-Fi rollout across the city. Okay. The second round is what we're working on designing now. Again, we've had a good deal of input from the Parks Department to get the other locations in blue. We're also going to be looking for funding to stand up Wi-Fi at the buildings in Roger Williams Park itself. So those locations, they are on a broadband network already. So it'll be somewhat quick and easy and cheap for us to add Wi-Fi to those locations. But we can certainly try to work with any input you have,
Okay.
For the phase 2 locations.
Okay, we'll do that. Councilman Narducci, you have your hand up?
Yeah,
You've
Madam
got
Chair, just quick, because I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it always appears that all these things are done without the input of the council people. Nobody knows our wards better than we do. We know our people, we know our wards. Because I'm really getting very upset as I continue to look at this map because it appears that we keyed quite a bit in one general area, and like Madam Chair, like you had stated, above here on the upper part of the map, there's one, 2, 3 yellow spots, 1 blue spot. Our kids here in the 4th ward and the 15th ward and also can use the same type of help kids in other parts of the city again. And I agree with Councilman Gonzalez. India Point Park is not is not the type of park where our children go to hang out. That's usually people that, if they were sitting at home, could utilize Wi-Fi just as much as if they were sitting in India Point Park. And again, I think one of my main concerns all the time with the administration is when we do things like this, we're always talked to about it once everything's all set. Now, even the second phase, I have no idea what's going on in the second phase. I'm sure a lot of my colleagues have no idea neither. The communication's terrible. I hope we can get it better. With that being said, Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much for your input. I'm going to ask Senior Advisor Lombardi. I see your hand up. You might have some insight or maybe some direction so that we
Sure.
can maybe move this in a direction to address Senior Leader Narducci's concerns.
Sure. So we started off obviously working with Jim and the administration on this issue. And we developed a pilot program of the 6 parks that were sent to them. They were not picked by me. They were actually, Yvonne picked them. I asked her to just pick 6 parks that, in working with Jim, that we had close communications to try this program out. The second phase, I know that Jim Cox has been emailing us, but they asking for a list of the second phase. And I know Jim has this all down. I'm sure there's a scientific method, but on the second phase, if there is something that we're missing, please let me know. And I will relay that to Jim, or you can obviously contact Jim directly.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, one more comment on this particular.
Yes,
item,
sir.
and then,
Please continue.
What Boys and Girls Clubs, where they reached out to, number one, and reason why I'm bringing that up is because I think I'm the only area, and there might be 1 or 2 other spots, but I do not have a rec center. For those of you that don't know my area, we do not have a rec center here in the Ward 4. We never did. We do have a Boys and Girls Club. So I'm kind of wondering, like, if any of the Boys and Girls Clubs throughout the city were ever reached out to also. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilman Goncalves.
Yes, Madam Chair, that's exactly my same concern. There's no rec center, but there's a Boys and Girls Club. And again, that Boys and Girls Club is close to Barton Gregorian and also the Fox Point Manor, which is low income housing. So that would be a perfect destination.
Councilman Goncalves and Senior Leader Narducci, I would like to ask that you speak with Jim and work with him, and maybe we can adjust what's happening in phase 2. Is that
Thank you, Madam Chair.
acceptable?
Fair enough.
Okay. Jim Silveria, can you continue? This is a hot
Sure.
topic. Actually,
I
it should be
understand.
on. This is a really important, critical piece for our communities. And if COVID has taught us anything, it was the lack of communication in many of our neighborhoods. And this was really a good spend for Opera, and we're excited about it. So you have our full support. We want you to know that. And we recognize that, you're going to take some time to get it rolled out. So please continue, and we appreciate your efforts on this for us.
So I understand that this is a huge opportunity for the city and for IT and for the residents as well. So this is something that we've been trying to get rolled out for several years now. The first phase, what we were looking at is rolling out Wi-Fi in public spaces that the city owns. So this is the rec center buildings. We own those and we have access to them already. Public parks where the city owns the location. Cox has service going by it, and we can place hardware in that location fairly easily. The other part of the program that we're looking at, I mentioned we have an RFP which should be advertised in April. This is the 2/3. The majority of the money that we're going to be spending under this is delivering broadband to residential access. And in the RFP, we're going to be looking for partners, nonprofits, collaboratives that can work with the low and moderate income residents of Providence, the housing authorities, the Boys and Girls Clubs, other nonprofit organizations or community organizations that would benefit from either rolling out Wi-Fi to residences or in their organization building. So we're really looking for creative solutions and people to come to us with how they can best serve people in their neighborhoods. We will likely pick several recipients and break up the grants based on what their asks are to really try to get the biggest bang for our buck and serve the most residents as possible. So there is more to this program coming, and we certainly intend to reach a lot more locations. Some of these are not going to be city properties, city-owned properties, so that's why we're looking for outreach from the community as well.
Wonderful. Okay. Please continue. Are you done?
Any other questions on this? I was trying to get through this quickly.
Councilwoman Anthony.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So, Jim, I just want to go back to the way this nonprofit organization. So, can you explain to me? Are we reaching out to these entities and organizations because they will host the hardware, or what exactly is going on here?
So this is part of the RFP that we're writing. Okay, and we're looking, as I said, for creative solutions. So, for example, if there's an organization that maintains a large housing unit, we would be looking to see how could they deliver broadband to those housing units. So whether it's initial investment in wiring and getting Wi-Fi equipment throughout the building, say in a high rise, if they need to wire each floor, that would be something that we're looking for to reach the most residents as possible.
Okay, that explains that, and I appreciate that. So secondly, I just want to ask the follow-up question. Did I hear you say that once these monies are expended, what is our continuing obligation in terms of financing of these broadband projects?
So I don't believe I addressed that part. We're also part of the RFP, we're going to be looking for respondents to tell us what they can do to continue the service that they provide.
This is my concern. We have a certain amount of money to invest. And I think we've talked about this particular concern about what the ongoing obligations are. I mean, to put the wiring and the infrastructure in is great, but if it doesn't end up providing the service, or we have continuing financial obligations once these funds are spent, then I think we've got to look very carefully at that.
Okay, well, this was already approved through the council. I think that, so we're going to ask Mr. Silveria to take that consideration, take the comment by Councilwoman Anthony into consideration. We've heard that before, other council members, myself included. We want to make sure that we're not creating items that are a drain on our general ledger go forward. That's not the intention. So we need to be very, very particular in our RFPs. This is a great, great program. I know it's been a goal of the city for many years. So let's carry that forward with us. Thank you, Councilwoman Anthony. Are you all set, or do you still have your hand up?
Nope, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, all righty. Thank you for that presentation. That was very helpful. And I'm sorry, I didn't expect that to take as long as it did. We're only completed our first item and we're getting short on time. So let's continue. The next item is early learning infrastructure. How are we doing with that? 1 million was budgeted for that.
Right, and so you may recall that in this current fiscal year, we had funds available for the early learning infrastructure funds with LISC. We are completing that work in contract currently. I believe it continues through the end of this current fiscal year. For the same reasons mentioned previously around contracting compliance, we want to really separate out these works. So it is our intention to use those funds to continue our work with LISC, who has been helping us look at making investments for early learning infrastructure at family-based providers, centers, et cetera. We have included in the packet for later in all the presentations how that work has been coming and the goal for using these funds. So you could reference the document that's the large PowerPoint thing, the 300+ pages there is a section more specifically to that program.
Any
So,
questions? I'm sorry.
no,
I'm
that's
sorry.
it, go ahead.
I interrupted you. Any questions, committee members, on this? I think we're well versed in this one. Anybody? Okay, let's move on.
The next two, I'm sorry. The next two items are
item.
relative to our recreation department. So it's the night basketball and summer camp program. I think just based on the timing that we passed this ordinance, and the programming that existed this summer with the recreation programs, they did not need to tap into it for this summer. In speaking with recreation, they will be utilizing this fund for the coming summer, this coming summer, and then the subsequent summers. So these funds will be used. It's just a matter of the amount of participants in programming from last summer where we were still in the depths of COVID. And our expectation, from my understanding from the Recreation Department, is that they will be able to increase programming this summer and future summers using these funds. The night basketball program, it did happen. So it's not that these programs are not existing, they are, they just have not tapped into the American Rescue Plan dollars for it. But it is the expectation of the Recreation Department also to utilize these funds to continue that program.
Thank you. Senior Leader Nanducci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just briefly, you know the support that both of these programs received from the full council. And I'm sure Director Stevens will make sure that these programs get up and running ASAP. I mean, we do got the summer approaching us. I'm sure these kids will be looking forward to getting out there and getting these basketball leagues started. I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Senior Leader. Okay, Diana, next one. And you can group them together if you feel that's appropriate.
Okay, great. So the next item is the the youth jobs program. So hold on one second. So this was where we decided to create year-round youth job opportunities, not just summer opportunities. So we did go out to bid for this, and we have selected providers. We are finalizing those contracts right now. The programs are starting. And so we are expecting to actually spend this full $1 million by the end of this current fiscal year. So that's why it's noted in June. We could provide an update following too, which programs have been selected. And also this dovetails into our youth mentorship program and the nonviolence investments. This was all part of our anti-violence strategies to really support our youth as we were seeing an increase in violence, particularly among youth in the community. We have, for all three of those programs, gone out to bid, selected entities. The youth mentorship program, we actually selected Mentor Rhode Island that just actually went out to bid for sub-grantees. And these programs, from my understanding, that program in particular is going to reach 737 youth in the city of Providence. I'm really excited to get that going. And then I'll add the nonviolence training program was bid as well. And the Institute for the Study and Practice of Nonviolence was selected for that. And they will be carrying trainings out throughout the city. And I could follow up with a schedule of that I don't have in front of me, but I'm sure you all would be interested in some more programming detail.
Madam Chair.
Senior Leader Narducci.
Thank you. I would just want to know moving forward, and Diana, I know you just said moving forward we'll have more information, but I would really want to know what kind of training with the nonviolence organization that they're doing for $377,000, and that particular amount maybe could be better used somewhere else, that people were stricken with the COVID situation going on. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Treasurer Lombardi.
Sure. Just a quick question on procurement, or on process. So I see, in regards to all of the documents you sent us, I see you sign off on them, Diana. Does finance and purchasing sign off on all of those documents?
Good point.
Well, the finance team should be signing off on anything relative to payments going out. That's just part of the process, so they would do that. In terms of the contracts themselves, multiple layers of review happen for that contract. So first approved by the legal department, then signed off by the partner, then signed off by the department or person who's point of contact for that. After all those signatures are garnered, then the recovery office approves it. So it's after it's vetted through the program lead, the legal department, then we review, and this is actually well after we've discussed, how the program should carry out, and we've provided some consulting support around ensuring that it complies with the guidelines and the documents we put out. So there's multiple layers of review. I sign as the person who's responsible for the American Rescue Plan dollars. However, for this specific programs, I don't feel comfortable standing on my own. I think that the departments need to be responsible for that. And so that's why we're requiring that extra check.
So just as an example, let's just use the Roger Williams Park Gateway project. I obviously sign off on that, but does anyone review the work? Does anyone make sure the progress is going in on programs like that? So, and if so, who does that due diligence?
Yeah, it's a combination and it's a team. So we are required by the federal government, regardless, to provide quarterly reports. So we are constantly checking in with the teams to make sure that we're getting the updated information. So that's just from the recovery office's requirement. So when we sign the contract for, after the ordinance said to have it go to the PRA for the Gateway project, we signed a contract that was vetted through our legal department, working with the PRA, working with the planning department, et cetera, on how that would go forward. So there are multiple levels of review on that contract. And then it's our expectation that they're checking those invoices. Our fiscal specialist, Laura, vets everything and follows up with everyone asking, hey, I know that we need to get this PO going. It did take us some time to get that system up and running because Laura just joined us in around Thanksgiving. So I expect that to move more smoothly going forward.
So just to be clear, so for example, you've paid them $1 million, $1 million, $1 million, or whatever the numbers may come up to. Who's doing the who's saying, okay, they've done $1 million worth of work, or testing, they needed to put 4 inches of side, concrete in, and they did that. Like, is there an inspector on board, or does Bonnie review that, or how does that work?
So, honestly, I don't want to misspeak about the way that they're reviewing construction projects and compliance on like the contract for that. I think that is so much better directed to Bonnie. I know that she was invited to come to this meeting, but she is out this week. She sent her regrets. I did put a report forward on the Gateway project to the committee, an update that she had provided, but I'm sure she'd be happy to come back and speak specifically to that. But it's my expectation that the department overseeing the funds would be doing that and providing us the information so that we are compliant with our federal requirements of the reporting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Auditor Costa?
Thank you. Jim, I just wanted to let you know, in the ordinance, it does say that the payment does go to PRA. So based on that, I think that they did the proper thing in getting a purchase order for PRA. That the next level goes to the PRA in terms of them spending it properly, which I'm still sure you have to report.
So can I ask, who can answer a question for me? So we've got opera dollars going through the PRA. How does that work? I don't know if we have, I don't know who can answer that question. The PRA is not a department of the city. Could someone explain how that works?
Well, I think under the American Rescue Plan, you can make transfers of funds to agencies, state agency, quasi-state agencies, nonprofits. And my understanding, from the first ordinance, it was clearly noted that the Providence Redevelopment Agency would receive $4 million for the Roger Williams Gateway project. So from the recovery perspective, from our team perspective, we're complying with the ordinance. So that is how that happened. Similar and well, the way that the Providence Center was allocated funding directly for their MHI co-response model. So it's dictated in the ordinance. That's how we're working with, seeing through the contracting.
Treasurer Lombardi, do you have any concerns about that?
I do, I've expressed them with probably at least 10 or 15 emails. I did get an opinion from Jeff Stevens that first of all, if you transfer money to the PRA, it's my opinion, and solely my opinion, that you have to go to the Board of Contract and Supply. So, but as the treasurer, we've had an agreement for the whole time that they would go to the Board of Contract and Supply, and I would work cooperatively with them on other areas. In this case, for some reason, they didn't go to the Board of Contract and Supply, but Jeff signed off saying that it was done in compliance with federal law, and hopefully, that's correct. And moving forward, I've talked to the PRA and said, you will go to the Board of Contract and Supply. They are writing regulations that any money they get, either from the city or from ARPA, they will go to the Board of Contract and Supply going forward. Or there will be no cooperation out of the Treasury.
Thank you very much. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, if I may, the only,
Yep.
I don't want to comment on the PRA work that is above my pay grade, so to speak. It is not my area. I do think it would be helpful to have Bonnie come back and speak to that. And also, I do know that the solicitor provided an opinion to the treasurer with regard to the PRA portion, and I think that should be followed up with as well.
Okay, Treasurer, would you like to follow up on your comment?
Just quickly, I just wanted to let you know that the attorney for the PRA has agreed with me, not the solicitor, and that he has written regulations and will go to the Board of Contract and Supply, period. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That actually addresses my concerns. Auditor Costa.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I do agree with Jim on this issue. This is a federal grant, and according to the consultant, who unfortunately is off because I wanted to ask him this question, his response was that it appears to be proper. Now, when we're paying a consultant, I want a yes or a no. I don't think it appears to comply qualifies, because in the future it would be the city having to pay back this money, not the consultant. So I think everything should go to the Board of Contract and Supply. It's transparent, and it just makes this whole process easier.
If we need to do that through an ordinance, Jim, please let us know. But I think that's a reasonable request. Just a question. I did notice that Jeff jumped off, and I didn't want to engage him in a topic about how he was engaged in the city. But is he under contract to provide consultation on this, on the opera immediate needs budget at this point?
So that was the first item that we were discussing, Chairwoman.
Yes.
I think he jumped off because because we need to go out to bid for continued work with him. Up until this point, we have been having him. I know that the treasurer's had questions. He submitted memos in reply. There's been a lot of, I know Chairwoman, you had a question regarding sidewalks. I had.
And he's been paid for his service? And he's been paid for his service to date?
Well, no, so I have to reimburse him for the original piece, but if he's continuing at this point, I'm not going to advise him to do anything further because you don't have authority, right?
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. Okay. All right, next item.
Next up is water fire. I know Lizzie's here. She provided some backup and she was also asked to come and present today. I'll just point it to her.
Hi. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Lizzie.
Hi, Councilwoman. So exciting to be here. Anyway, thank you for having me.
Happy to have you here.
I don't have a PowerPoint for water fire. I sent some documents. I just wanted to address the as it was an immediate need and the length of time it took to get them their payment. I just wanted to address that issue. A part of
So
the
for my committee, for the committee's benefit, water fire is covered under Exhibit 8 and Exhibit 9 in your packets. And Lizzie, you don't need to make a PowerPoint presentation. Just give us a general overview of where they're at, how they did, give us a summary, if you will.
Sure will. With the promise of the payment from the first ordinance, Waterfire was able to produce a season. With their board agreed to keep them open and produce a season. They received the money in January 6th, I believe, to reimburse for that use. So I just I can tell you some facts and data. They had a wonderful season. As soon as the season was announced, the surrounding hotels were booked, and the businesses that are engaged with them began to make money. It is without a doubt an economic generator for the city. So they generate about $114 million in economic impact for the city, and they support 1,294 jobs. So they are a really wonderful program here in the city. I know that they can be challenging, but I think it's really wonderful that the Finance Committee agreed to make them a part of the ordinance. And I think the city has benefited from them being able to produce their season. They're getting ready for their 22 season now. So that's the summary.
Okay.
Any questions?
So 300,000 was allocated and 300,000 has been paid, correct?
Yep, and there is invoices showing what that money was, how it was used, and also the sub-grantee agreement, which was not even available to us to start with until November, and the final rule from the federal government was also not available. So that held up the actual process to some degree.
So you say a season. What does a season mean? How many water fires is a season?
So water fire season is about 14 fires, and it starts in April and it ends on Veterans Day. Their last event is Veterans Day generally, but in 2021, they also did a basin fire on December 4th, which matched up really lovely in a lovely way with our tree lighting.
And these funds are leveraged by other sources of funding, correct?
Correct. That is correct.
Okay. Do you know the leverage? How much other dollars support this funding for water fire?
Sorry that I don't have that answer, but I will get it and send it right to the committee.
Okay, thank you. And then my only other question, you said they're getting ready for the next season. How are they funding that?
Well, they're raising money, and because they were able to do water fires, they're able to go out and raise money. They're in a much more stable position going forward because of the investment that the city has made in them.
And the reason that they were included in the immediate need budget was because of COVID-19, the slowdown, and the need to kickstart this. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, all right. Any committee, Councilman Anthony, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lizzie, just a quick question. Did you say that it supported 1,294 jobs? Is that what I heard you say? What jobs throughout?
With water fire, restaurants and bars hire extra people for those events. Artists do performance and street performance during those events. I can also get you a list of what those are as well, Councilwoman, if you'd like.
That's fine. I don't need the list. And then,
okay.
So primarily this money was used to reimburse the salaries for the season. Is that correct?
Correct. That is correct.
Yeah. Thank you.
Have we signed the contract for next year?
We have not.
Where are we? No.
No,
And what's holding that up?
I think I would have to take responsibility for that, Councilwoman.
Yeah.
Being new to
We're
this.
not blaming you for anything.
I am new, so I'm trying to collect all the things that I need to
move
forward. And so I'm hoping to do that in the next couple of weeks. Actually, I've been talking to the Councilman Goncalves about that as well.
You've got big shoes to fill, but I know that you're doing a great job, and we have high expectations of you in that new role. So thank you. I was just curious. I wasn't alluding to anything other than just being curious. Councilman Goncalves, you have your hand up.
Yeah, Chairwoman Ryan, I just want to thank you and Lizzie for your leadership, especially ensuring that we could allocate that 300,000 of ARPA funding to match the state and keep Waterfire going. Just so thankful for you and your leadership. And as Lizzie had mentioned, Waterfire puts about $100 million back into our local economy. Its cultural, economic, and social impact in bringing people together can't be overstated. And I want to thank you for your leadership and your support of Waterfire. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Okay, any other questions for Lizzie? Committee members, council members? Okay, Lizzie, thank you. You do
Thank you
wonderful
so
work.
much.
We're so fortunate to have you.
Oh, thank you so much, Councilwoman. I'm sure I'll see you soon.
Hope so. Next topic. Diana, what do you have for us?
So continuing down the list is the Roger Williams Gateway project. I think we just spoke a little bit about that. We were on track to spend the full amount by the end of this fiscal year, as the project is supposed to be complete by June 2022. So this reflects the first amount that was awarded in or provided in February for that contract. And we have an outstanding about $2,062,000 left on that. Going forward, the Providence Center, $187,000. That was for the MHI co-response model. That was a reimbursement contract. That program is currently running.
Did we do nonviolence training? I think we skipped something here. So Roger Williams Gateway, you say, is on track. Councilman Goncalves, you have your hand up. Is that an old hand or a new hand?
That's an old hand, sorry.
Okay. Any questions on Roger Williams Gateway from committee members, council members? Everybody good with Roger Williams Gateway? Okay, nonviolence training program is up next, Diana. I interrupted you, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. No, actually, I did reference this earlier with our anti-violence investments. So we did go out to RFP.
Excuse me 1 second.
Leader,
Just
yes.
going back to the Rhode Island, Roger Williams Park Gateway.
Yes, sir.
I know there was a couple outstanding questions about the oversight. I see we have Wendy here with us. Maybe she would have some insight on the particular oversights, the questions that came up, maybe.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Director Nielsen.
Hi.
What's going on? What kind of wonderful things you have in store for us? What's going on at the Gateway project?
So the Gateway project is doing incredibly well. It is slated to be open in June, July of 22. It is right on target and it looks amazing. We are on site every single morning to meet with the contractor, to see the work, and Amanda DeGrace at PRA, I believe, is signing all of the submittals on that. But I can assure you that this work is being monitored by our very own Brian Burns, which those of you who are familiar with Brian's work know that nothing gets by Brian. He is probably the most solid project manager in the city, at least from my opinion. So it's going very well, and it looks amazing. It's going to be transformative for the neighborhood and for the park. And we're proud to be partners on it.
Thank you. Does that answer your questions, Councilman, Senior
Yes,
Leader
Madam.
Nadu?
Yes, Madam Chair, and I knew Superintendent Nielsen would have answers for us. Thank you, Wendy.
You're welcome.
Okay, I see Auditor Costa has her hand up, and it's a new hand.
Yes, it is. I don't know if this would be directed at Diana or Wendy. If we're doing a Roger Williams Park project, why did it go to PRA? Why wouldn't it just go directly to Roger Williams Park to do the project?
Good one.
I would have gone with the Board of Contract and Supply. We wouldn't have had those questions. I know that PRA owned the property, so we could have paid PRA the amount of the property and gone forward with the project. Any idea? No?
Bonnie would be best to answer this, having purview over all that PRA does, but my understanding is because this was about land acquisition, and then the PRA was the principal investigator on the first grant with Rhode Island Housing. So that was the initial funding source for this project before the scope grew and what have you.
Does any revenue go to the PRA for these types of transactions? Okay, so we're gonna make a request upon Bonnie. Diana, would you be kind enough to see if she can give us a response on that? Why did it go to the PRA? And if there's any financial benefit to the PRA on this particular upper funding as well as others? How does that work? How is
Happy
that
to.
Thank you.
I do know that Bonnie is out this week, so would that be okay to follow up next week?
Absolutely. Please send it to the clerk and ask that she distribute it to the committee. Thank you.
Okay.
Please continue, Diana.
Sure. I think, so I mentioned Providence Center. The next two awards, so our Providence Public Library and the Providence Community Library, both were noted specifically in the ordinance. We have signed those contracts. We're going forward with certain payments. And we are expecting at least for PCL to have paid out the full $100,000 of their $400,000 amount. As I mentioned before, this goes over multiple years, so we're expecting this to continue. And that's for increasing their hours of operation. And then Providence Public Library, same, we are expecting to spend the full $100,000. We've finalized that contract.
So is the PPL in the next opera budget, the mayor's opera budget that's before us, or is this it?
No, I do think that there is a consideration for Providence Community Library, but not Providence Public Library.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up.
I see Councilwoman Anthony has a question.
Oh, thank you for the assist. I'm sorry. It's still difficult on Zoom. Councilwoman Anthony.
Can we just back up to the Providence Center? Can we just talk about what that is? What's being done on Providence Center?
Yes, absolutely. So, and so the cover for the packet with all the background does have just a very brief description of each program to reference. This program in particular is about embedding 2 full-time behavioral health clinicians in the police department. So this is the similar in fashion we've been talking about, looking at models like the COODS program, thinking about embedding behavioral health practitioners in police and public safety overall. So this has been the program that the Providence Center the police department has been running. Initially, this was, I believe, grant funded through the Department of Justice, and then was supported through the Rhode Island Foundation. And then we are supporting this. We are looking at our second spend to create, we actually have an RFP process going out, potentially, if approved, to do a crisis intervention model that would broaden this intervention and go beyond that. But this was a reimbursement for the work that they've already been doing. They've been contracted with the police department to have these 2 clinicians embedded with them as right along.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Next up.
Yes, the community centers. So this was not explicit in the first ordinance, but it was passed as part of the budget and requested to be part of the ARPA ordinance. In the second Schedule 2 of the ARPA ordinance, we actually call out the community centers. So it is explicit under ARPA, but just to be clear, we're not asking for an additional spend on that. That is just to clarify, clear up the documents to make sure it's reflected. So we have gone out and we've gotten details from each of the centers requesting or asking them, what their needs were during COVID and how we could support them. And so we've gotten that documentation and we've started going forward with awarding directly. Each community center is getting about a little bit over $33,000. And so that's what that line item is for. And we expect to spend the full $300,000 before the end of this fiscal year.
Thank you.
No problem. So the next spend is on our homelessness fund. So as you may recall, the city did support Crossroads for the majority of this resource to create a mobile diversion program to help individuals stay out or not even go into shelter. So it's to intervene before shelter happens. And so that program is currently running. We have contracted with them. And we are expecting to spend about half the contract in this current fiscal year.
Questions? Senior Nanducci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, this is kind of a soft spot for me as a councilman. I see the amount of funding we're giving for other organizations, and yet the homelessness, we're giving 254,000. We have a severe homeless crisis in our city, and not just our city, it's countrywide. What these people need is shelter, places to live. I don't see that 245,000 helping that way whatsoever, unless I misunderstood. And I had this conversation with this committee before with the administration, that if it was up to me, I would have gave all the ARPA funding to the homeless situation and built multiple housing strictly for the homeless. So can you explain a little more, please, Diane, Madam Chair, if you don't mind?
Please, absolutely.
Just what this particular program is going to do for our homeless people.
Yes. So, I express your similar concern, Councilman. I know that this is a huge issue in the city, and we've been trying from very many different angles. I know many of the council members have been dedicated to this. I've seen many of you at visits around shelters, new ideas around how we can create opportunities for housing for our homeless. So I know that you care deeply about this, and as do we, and myself in particular. We did propose over $28 million in the second ordinance to address the multiple needs around housing. I agree that only $500,000 is not enough to address that. And I also think that the state needs to deploy more money to address this issue as well. And just for reference, I've just spoken with Josh Saul on Friday, actually, about this issue. He is our new housing deputy with the state level. And I know he's rolling up his sleeves to try to figure out a way to coordinate with municipalities around the issue. This particular program is to create a mobile diversion program to help place people in long-term housing directly from unsheltered homelessness. So the idea that, we're seeing people unfortunately take up unconventional, options, right? So camping or in a car, that is not shelter. That is something they've just tried to figure out temporarily. So this program actually goes and works with folks who are out in the community, who are on the street, who are not in appropriate shelter, and helps connect them to some sort of shelter. What that means is, at least the way we talked about this with Crossroads is not everyone. I mean, the number of people who are out on the street now is certainly amplified. It's a lot more due to COVID, partially because capacity within the shelters and a number of issues that led to an increased number of people who are unsheltered. And so in part, we know that folks prior to the pandemic had somewhere, right? Whatever that opportunity relationship was like. And so the Crossroads program is intended to help individuals reconnect with family, friends, places where they could have shelter that's not the conventional shelter system, because right now we are actually at capacity among our shelters, the hotel program. There are very limited opportunities for people. So this is I wouldn't say creative. I think it's more of a needed intervention based on what is not available, and not enough beds are available. So this helps kind of triage that before people go into a sheltered bed or try to find a sheltered bed. It helps them find another opportunity for housing.
That answer your question, Councilman?
Yeah, it's still, I guess it's something we can discuss at a further date, but because it's still not giving housing, which is a desperate need that we need to do.
So Councilman, can I just interject? I know your passion on this topic, and believe me, I hear you. And I absolutely support additional dollars to address the housing issues that we have. This particular piece is just a program, as Diana expressed. It's a mobile diversion program. It wasn't intended it was part of the immediate need budget because they needed to get something operational as quickly as possible. This was discussed at great length in my homeless emergency housing commission that we had. And it was described to us very well by some folks that came to testify as truly a triage, a mobile triage unit that would literally go out on the street, identify people that didn't have a place to go, and try to get them the help that they need. And as you had said earlier, their needs are varied. It may be an economic thing. It may be a social issue. They may need medical services and the like. So the intention of this program, it's small amount because it was limited and almost, I don't want to say a pilot, but it was limited because that's what they needed to kick off the program. That paid for that program. But the real goal here, it's one piece of the larger picture. As Diana mentioned, the mayor's housing opera budget has a good amount for housing. We can argue later in our discussion how much it should get, or if the need is even greater than what is allocated, and that's an appropriate discussion for sure. But the thing that everybody needs to be mindful of, the housing advocates asked for this. They thought it was a critical need. That's why it appeared in the immediate need budget. But also we have to remember that it's so critical not to direct people to a shelter, because once they get to a shelter, they're getting them out of that shelter is a bigger problem. So this is intended, it's a small pot of money, but it is intended to divert people so that they don't get into the shelter system. And, I fully supported this when it came before my committee, and I supported it in this topic. But I hear you about the larger need for housing issues, Councilman, and they're absolutely on the money, well served. And we'll continue to have that discussion. I'm sorry, Diane, I just know a lot about this particular program. Yes, sir.
Diane.
Thank you, Chairwoman, for the assist.
My pleasure. Okay, next up.
Okay, so next on the list is the Relief for Small Business Program. I know this was mentioned earlier on the agenda.
Yes.
This program, we have to date only expended $562,766. I do think this program could benefit from some adjustments to limit some of the restrictions on it in order for more people to be eligible. My understanding, we have to date have approved, we've had 431 businesses registered, 360 applied, 226 approved, a payment amount of $565,000. We've had 130 businesses denied. And that is in part due to some of the restrictions of the program. We've heard that the dollar amount is not high enough, and also the tangible tax piece is limiting and restrictive for people. So I would be interested in revisiting that so that we can address some of the concerns mentioned earlier, so that we can, provide more relief to folks.
Okay. I would be interested in seeing some of the analysis on that. As we know from any programming, it's important to look at those denied, why they were denied, to see if we can't, make any modifications or changes. It's certainly an important piece. Our small businesses are struggling tremendously, and I think we need to move quickly to make any changes we need to. I see lots of hands up. Councilwoman Anthony, you had raised this very early on, so please, you had questions. Now's the time.
And mine's an old hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
hand
ahead,
too.
Councilman.
Okay.
No,
Senior leader, you.
yeah, no, mine's just an old hand, so I'm taking my hand down.
Old hand,
Okay.
okay. All hands are down. So new
I
hands,
guess-
we have Anthony, we have Gunn and we have Treasurer Lombardi. So
I
Councilwoman
guess
Anthony.
I'd like to know, who set the requirements? So how was this program constituted, and who set the requirements, and how was it put in place?
I know the treasurer just unmuted. I would say that this was a collaborative effort between the council staff and the administration staff. There were multiple meetings and discussions around setting some criteria, and we received some criteria to put this forward. So I think the treasurer could probably speak a little bit more about some of those pieces. It was something we worked together on.
Mr. Treasurer, can you
Sure.
provide some clarity?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So we initially met with the administration on this, specifically the tax assessor, and developed criteria that we all agreed to moving forward would work. There's a number of different issues, and we are prepared to make some changes and make more people qualified. But let me say this, there's obvious problems that are not obvious. One is for $2,500, I don't know if people trust the city enough to apply, to be honest with you. We have to produce tax returns, and that's not my criteria. That's a requirement to show that they were financially harmed. The other thing is that a number of people have applied that owe taxes. And that was one of the criteria. We obviously don't want to give checks to people who owe taxes. But we're looking at that as well, because if they owe less than $2,500 taxes and they qualify, then that's something that we can try to work with them with. The other one is that, that some businesses that applied did not get harmed, and therefore we cannot give them money during the pandemic. I've also, we've been working in trying to figure this out, and I think presently lowering the tax limit from 5,000 to say 100 would open up the door for a number of people. But again, I don't know if people will apply. So we've thoroughly talked this out. I have reached out to the Commerce Corporation to see if they could give us some advice on this. They have not responded. I'll follow up on that. But we just can't, let me just say this, there has to be an application. And this isn't my criteria. There has to be an application. Unfortunately, there has to be harm. And they have to prove harm during the pandemic. In doing so, you have to provide documentation on that. And again, that's tax returns, that's different documents. Again, not my requirement. And, I just don't think that people are trusting. We've also looked at maybe even doubling the number to get money out to businesses. The other thing is that, we have to prove that they were in Providence, in business. I'm going to say January 1st, 2020, but that might not be the exact day. And the only way that the city can do that I know of, is through being a recognized business through the city. There were some statements, well, maybe we have to go to the Secretary of State and get a certificate of good standing. That's not something that we would require, that we need. We were trying to get the money out as quickly as we could. So we're still working on it.
Treasurer Lombardi, can I just ask at this point, I know the Commerce Department is running a similar program.
Yes.
How is their program different from ours? Or is there a similarity?
There are similarities. Their program, remember, they have a lot more resources than we have. So for example, they have the Division of Taxation that they can look up and see that a business has been qualified. They have the Secretary of State that sees that you can see that they're running at that time. They have access to tax returns, so you really wouldn't be uncomfortable sending them the tax return. The city, unfortunately, I think that I've heard that people are uncomfortable for the $2,500 to send it. Are there other ways of doing it? I don't know. I mean, if we do it incorrectly, we could be on the hook for it. So although I've tried to, work with the administration, and we've debated every issue and tried to move this forward as best we could, there are obstacles.
Okay, and you are working on it now, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Treasurer,
Councilwoman
I would
Anthony,
ask-
continue.
Yes. Go ahead, is Diana trying to answer?
No, I would just note that, so Keith Stokes, who's our current Director of Economic Development for the city, has been meeting with Stephen Pryor in Commerce and has a lot of detail on the program. I would love to provide some recommendations to shift it that we think will create more eligibility. And Treasurer, I'm open to that conversation whenever you'd like to have it. I know Keith has reached out to you to try to have that conversation. So we would be, I know he has through various emails that I've been copied on. So we'd be happy to present that to you at any point.
Oh, yeah, and I said thank you, right, I got it. One second.
What was that? Can you just repeat yourself, Councilman Treasurer? We may have lost you, but you were.
I'm sorry, I said
We
yes,
didn't get
he did reach out to me and I did respond back.
Okay, we didn't get that. Sorry, I made you repeat yourself. Councilwoman Anthony, would you like to weigh in?
Yes, I would like to weigh in. Thank you. I just, if we can't seem to get these monies out in this program, as Councilman Narducci pointed out, there are other areas of need. So, while I've been very supportive of small businesses, obviously there's something wrong here. We can't seem to get the money out the door. And, if it's a trust issue, it's a trust issue. I don't know, so, we can use these monies elsewhere. So this can't just continue bumping along. We should have been able to get the money out the door. So I'm wondering what the end game is, and are we going to put a timeline on this?
Sure, there is a timeline. The timeline is the end of this fiscal year. So it's June 30th, I believe, is the deadline for the applications. If you don't, then it can be, then the council can redistribute the money, or we can develop a new program, or we can do whatever the council wants to do with it.
Okay, so if the money, it doesn't out the door by the end of June, or the applications aren't approved, then we can reallocate the money.
I would encourage, so some of the ideas that have come forward, particularly from Keith and kind of doing some research around needs to a small business community. We've heard a lot of needs still around technical assistance and support. So one thing that we could do in concert is not only provide the relief funds, but if there was an opportunity to do relief funds along with some additional technical assistance to help some of the business gain access to all the things we've been hearing that are problematic, online platforms, accounting pieces, things that would get them better set up to apply for bids through the city. So there's this concept that OEO would like to put forward around a concierge supportive service to businesses that I think these funds could be used for, in addition to some of the relief as we've been trying to put the funds out.
Is that okay, Councilman Anthony? You have any more comment? You're all right? Treasurer Lombardi, do you need a follow-up? Your hand is up. You're good?
No,
Councilman Gonzalez.
Thank you.
Councilman Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Councilwoman Anthony. Just from my experience, I've heard from several, and these are very, very competent businesses in Ward 1 that have reached out to say the eligibility requirements make it inaccessible to them. And some of the things that I've heard is specifically the tangible tax bill in the range of, I think it's 558 to, I think it's 55,800. That makes it inaccessible to them because they might be a business that's doing fine and struggle during the pandemic, but they don't have a tangible tax bill in that range. And then the other piece that I've heard too is businesses that have established a little bit before the deadline, which I think is it December 31st, 2019? Is that right? Treasurer?
Sounds about right.
Yeah, so there are places that have established I think a little bit before that or after that date, and that's made it complicated for folks as well. But given the numbers here, it appears as though there are 2,400 odd businesses that still haven't had the that still haven't received these grants. What are the outreach efforts on behalf of the city, or what has the city done in terms of outreach?
So I know that they did a direct mail. I believe the administration sent out a direct mailing with the council signing on and the administration signing on. It's on our website, of course. We've tweeted, we've sent it on our Facebook page. We've done a lot, but we haven't done enough. I agree with you. So what we were doing right now is the council president has asked me to actually go to publications. For example, the Providence Business News, in different publications to advertise when we get the new criteria in, which I'm going to say is going to be at any time. The other thing is that some of the criteria that's picked is not picked by us, it's picked by the federal government. So for example, that December 31st deadline that you mentioned is not our date, it's the date of the federal government. So you have to prove harm as of that date. I agree with you that there are complications of if you opened up in that year. Remember, we don't get taxed until the subsequent year on certain things, on personal property tax. But how do we establish that it was a business other than that they reported something to the city of Providence? Because if it goes the other way and there's 10,000 fraudulent claims, then somebody's neck is going to be on the line, and I hope it's not mine. So I understand. Well, I think we're proceeding as aggressively as possible but being cautious. We understand that we need to expand the program, and we will do that. But then there's a deadline coming up, and that deadline falls back to the council to say, hey, listen, we did everything we could. We did the program, but we found some places we can spend this money in a different way.
Thank you, Treasurer. And is it possible, or is that also a federal regulation, that the tangible tax requirement could be relaxed? Because I think that was an important and significant barrier for many of the businesses as well.
Right, but how do we establish the business? So I might say back in December, I don't have any tangible, I don't have anything, but I had a business on December 31st, 2019, but I never reported it anywhere, but I'm going to apply. So what's that floor? If you can help me with that, that would be helpful. Where is that documented other than in the tax office in the city of Providence that business existed?
Yes, and I'm not questioning that at all. I'm just sharing what I've heard from some Ward 1 businesses. I think it might also be helpful to do some kind of roundtable. I know I can tell you definitively businesses on South Water Street have reached out about this issue. Wayland Square, Ive Street businesses, and these are pretty reputable businesses that got hit during the pandemic. They're doing just fine. But the people who run these businesses, they probably don't need as much technical assistance as some of, the other parts of the city. But I would say that there's been a lot of feedback about some of the eligibility requirements. So it might be worth just sitting down with some of these business leaders and thinking about a good path moving forward.
And Councilman, just so you know, we have met with I don't know what the name of the organization is, but maybe the Small Business People Down City. They're an organization, and there are times that people just don't qualify, and people may still be upset, but they again they're not our. The tangible tax is our flaw. It is with the tax collector a way of proving that they were in business at that time. But the other criteria is the federal government's, and I think that's causing a problem as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your efforts, Treasurer, and thank you for all of the impending changes that might be made to make it more accessible to some of the city businesses. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. So suffice it to say, Councilman Narducci, yes.
Excuse me, I'm going to have to leave at this time.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you
guys.
for letting me know. Okay, so suffice it to say that there's more work being done on this. That the goal is to try to make it as easy as possible to get it out there, but obviously we have a burden of qualifying the individual. But I do think outreach is important, so let's focus on trying to address some of the criteria and ratchet up the outreach. I think is an excellent idea. And we do have a June date on it, so I think we always were struggling or trying to find the right qualification on this program from the get-go. But I think the need is great, and it behooves us to identify that. So thank you very much for your work on that. Don't see any more hands, so let's move on.
Okay, so the next category is summer jobs. We are expecting to have $87,000 spent from that program, from ARPA for that program. This would actually be to cover expenses from this past summer. We will likely be seeing more of that drawn down for this coming summer and then following summers as well. The increase, so that 87,000 was used for predominantly youth salaries and stipends increase that we had over the last year to meet a minimum hourly rate.
Don't know. How is, I'm sorry, Diane. I was looking at summer jobs that you were just talking about. And how is that, that's $1 million that was allocated to that. How is that different from the summer camp allocation of 600,000? I thought they were the same thing. What's the difference?
No, so the summer camp program is specifically to recreation programs. The summer jobs program is the Office of Economic Opportunity Youth Jobs program, where we align with nonprofit providers and pay stipends to youth hourly rates to get job training opportunities. So that is actually, this is, we run that program every summer. This was to increase participation this past summer. We also, in the first ordinance, passed $1 million for a year-round youth jobs program. So now we're not just offering in the summer, we're offering it regularly throughout the year. So that is an add-on to the existing youth summer jobs program.
So you're running an existing summer jobs program, and it comes out of our general fund, correct?
Yes, yes.
And basically took another $1 million from ARPA to enhance that budgeted item?
Well,
so
I'm sorry, to expand the number of programs, the number of participants in summer job programs.
Okay, what's going to happen when these funds go away?
I think that is a very good question. I know that, so these funds, the $1 million is for the period of ARPA, so we could have it extend over the next few summers. But we do have every year a summer jobs amount in the budget under the Office of Economic Opportunity to run the program. So the program won't go away. If we aren't able to resource it more, it will likely mean that we'll be back to the annual amount appropriation that is provided at the Office of Economic Opportunity to run that. I do know that the department is seeking other partnerships and opportunities to see how we could match these funds. And this is also one of those pieces that we've been talking to the school district about. They have a bunch of ESSER funds. They should also be thinking about creating some jobs opportunities for youth and other learning opportunities.
Okay, I see Auditor Costa has her hand up. You want to offer some clarification?
No clarification, just I'm going to ask Diana, you may have said this and I apologize. The year-round youth jobs and the summer jobs are all through OEO?
Yes.
So we have nothing going to Workforce Solutions?
Not currently, no.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Anthony, thank you.
So Diane, I just want to be clear. So we have the allocation in our budget, and I would assume that covers a certain number of jobs, correct? And so the $1 million from ARPA is going to boost the number, and then we're going to have to go back after our ARPA funds are used.
I mean, I can't.
Realistically.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that could be the case.
Okay.
But I think the intention here really, knowing that youth have had some challenges in the schools throughout COVID, the number of opportunities in hands-on learning and job opportunities have been limited. So we figured a boost into this area would actually be very helpful in recovery for our youth who haven't been able to get those hands-on job opportunities and participate in these extracurricular outside of school learning experiences. So that was part of our intention in putting this forward as an immediate need as well.
Thank you.
Okay, next one, Diana.
The next one is revenue recovery. And so I think that is going to have to shake out further with finance in terms of the total amount used for this current fiscal year, but we appropriated $19 million, $457,000 to revenue recovery. And the last item beyond the admin spend is the street sweeping. So I know Leo Parada is on the line, and we have an expected $100,000 spend from the street sweeping work.
That's correct, Diana, and we will continue to do more sweeping in the current year. That's part of our overall expenditures. We're doing sweeping and monies to go towards sewer infrastructure as well. So we do have money in the general fund, supplementing with opera funds to expand our sweeping program.
So it's street sweeping and sewer in that line item? An immediate need?
Yeah, I believe it's a total of, correct me if I'm wrong, Diane, I think it's like 3 million total. And about 500,000 is available for street sweeping and the rest for sewers. Obviously, we'd like to spend more of it on sewer because you get bigger bang for the buck. It's long-lasting impacts. You can repair a sewer or reline it in the last 50 years. The street sweeping is one and done. You have to do it every year. So we're going to try and build capacity in our current budget and budgets moving forward so that we can continue the level of sweeping that we're providing right now, but opera funds are helping us along that way.
And how are you spending that money for street sweeping? Is that for equipment? Is that for rentals? What is that for?
Yeah, that's for a private vendor. So with the vendor, we're able to sweep the city at least 4 times or more. With our own internal staff, we're barely able to get maybe like 2.5 passes throughout the whole city. So with that extra equipment and personnel, we bid that out last year. We're able to sweep more often and provide a better service to the residents.
Okay. I see Craig Hotchman is with us. Do you want to opine on the sewer system? How are you going to use those dollars? What your plans are?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me tonight. I think we've spoken of our difficulties in sorting out the things that we need to do as a city against those obligations that we have for our regulatory and compliance programs. We spent the past few months working with EPA and DEM to understand where our holes are. I think there's been a failure on both sides to really account for what's been accomplished and what's in progress. But with the submission of our regulatory and compliance reports just last week, I feel like we're in a much better position and we've begun planning to spend these ARPA funds. And we've got a meeting next week to get that program kicked off. A major goal of mine is to work in areas where we experience sanitary sewer overflows and have sinkhole problems. And through those regulatory reports, we've identified some areas where we'd like to work by cleaning, investigating, and then coming up with repair plans for these targeted areas. We're really trying to team up or get behind other utility projects like Providence Water and National Grid Gas. So we're disturbing the road once, and we can further our dollar by sharing those restoration costs for these projects.
So Craig, I know your need is great. 2.5 million doesn't seem like a lot to address some of the challenges that you have. So, you know, I guess the question for me has always been, how deep is the hole? How much money do you need to address the challenges, the immediate challenges that we have with our sewer system. Because I don't think this is enough.
Yeah,
And
I've got some.
I think that we would be remiss if we don't recognize this is a once in a generation source of funds. I think we really have to address our infrastructure needs, but we can't do that unless we hear from our department heads as to what is really truly needed. So please, can you answer that question to the best of your ability?
Yeah, you're certainly right. The past 5 years of CIP are the first real infusion of funds into our sewer system, to my knowledge. We've done a good job spending those. We're going to spend down our latest allocation with obligations to about 85%. And that's why we're starting to tap into these ARPA funds now. I've crafted a 10-year budget, which identifies some $8 million average annually over the next 10 years. So we're hopeful that the next ARPA ordinance does come through with those next $3 million that have been proposed. And that would put us in good shape for for this year and the beginning of next year. We would like to see some continuity in the funding. And to do so, we've submitted our project priority list to the Rail and Infrastructure Bank and Clean Water Revolving Fund at DEM to hopefully leverage these dollars that we have in the event that we need matching dollars, or we're also hopeful for grants to continue our work here. Yes, long-term sustained funding has and always will be a challenge, and yeah, thank you for realizing that.
So your testimony is that you'd be all set with the opera dollars for this year and next, but you've got a 10-year plan.
Right. With our current staff today, yes, that's what I feel comfortable pushing out realistically. I don't want to over ask because I do feel like we have a lot going on, and just capacity to handle all that right now or anything really above and beyond is just going to bury us and stymie progress forward.
Do you need more staff? Is it a staffing issue? Is it a capital issue? What is it that you need?
Yes, staffing and capital. We have 2 vacant positions. One we're hopeful to advertise later this week. The other we're hopeful to advertise after the next budget is approved. So we can hopefully increase some of those salaries.
Okay.
I think I've testified previously that we've never had a full budget or a full staff in engineering, so I'm reluctant to ask for more than what we have today. I'd really like to see us utilize what we've been budgeted for previously before asking the council and the administration for more.
You at one point had testified that the salary amounts were difficult, were challenging or burdens for you to get the staff that you needed. Is that still the case?
That's still the case, yes. Myself, the deputy engineer are filled. Those are more competitive with the market. We were so very fortunate to bring on a new employee a month and a half ago from a state agency, which was somewhat of a pay cut, but we're hopeful that with the new union contract negotiated coming up for July 1, that the 15% reduction for new employees is eliminated to help make that more attractive to bring on union employees.
So Craig, we're bumping into the budget. I do want you to take the time, energy, and effort and work with the HR director, work with our treasurer. We need to come up with a model, a plan for staffing for your department that helps you attract and retain the necessary staffing. I think it's the biggest area, the biggest department that has a shortfall in the city of Providence. And I think it's now critical that we work to address it. I know that I'm committed to doing that, but I need your help and I'm going to ask Leo Parada as well to assist that effort. I know that you've got some ideas. I see Councilwoman Anthony's hand up.
Yes, thank you so
Councilwoman
much.
Anthony?
I'm echoing all of your comments, Madam Chairwoman. I think this is, this department, these issues, the infrastructure, sewers in particular, we need to staff appropriately. And Craig, I think your department is going to be leading that charge. We can't have it short-staffed. I think we do need to invest in an additional engineer, and I think we should do it sooner than later. I'd also like to see, if possible, I know we'll be I hope we're going to see the 10-year budget, which would include your salary, needs, because, I know that there gets, when we go through the budget department, everyone has to, collectively work together. But I think for some reason, we haven't been spending the appropriate funding on infrastructure and sewers and your salaries in particular. So I'm really hoping that that's a priority in the budget process. That you'll be, giving us the information we need along with Director Parada so that we can make the changes we need to make in this department. Thank you.
Councilman Goncalves.
Madam Chair, I just want to echo everything that's already been said. I appreciate the work of our DPW Director Parada and Hockman. I mean, they're doing very hard work with very limited resources, and I just want to thank them for all that they're doing. And I hope that this committee and under your leadership will support them in their efforts moving forward. So I just wanted to articulate that. Thank you.
Great. Okay, what's left?
I think I reviewed all the items, Chairwoman. Is there anything in particular you'd like to go over?
You've got an administrative allocation 1.22. What's that?
Yes, so that is in part my salary, Laura's work, the work we were budgeting for Iparametrics. So that isn't listed within that, but part of the expectation. And also our recovery specialist and communication specialist. So staffing, in addition to having some support around some of the programming. So as you mentioned, continued communication support and community outreach support. The previously agreed upon systems change strategy contract that helped us with the community engagement around the task force report. So that is what is entailed within that line item.
Thank you very much. Okay, Councilman Anthony, you have your hand up. Nope, old hand. Okay, is that a wrap on the immediate need budget items? That's a wrap. Okay, we're getting very late here. The next item is the opera budget. I wanted an opportunity to try to move that along if we could. How does the committee feel about staying to talk about this at this point, or do you want to continue it? It's very late.
I would love to continue it if possible.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Oh, that was the motion.
It was not.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let's, that concludes our discussion on item 2. It was just an update, so there's no vote necessary on that. And I'm not going to continue the discussion because I think that we had a good discussion, and if I need to bring it back, I will. So let's have the clerk read item 3 into the record, and I am not going to let this go too long, but let's begin.
Item number 3, an ordinance adopting the American Rescue Plan Act grant budget for the period of January 6, 2022 through December 31st, 2024.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, I have 2 exhibits that we need to enter into the record for our discussion this evening. It is Exhibit 11. It's an updated opera presentation. It's our famous 318-page document, and I want to thank Diana for getting that updated for us. That's Exhibit 11, and then Exhibit 12 is letters of support for Providence Promise that have been submitted to the clerk and are available on the portal, correct? Okay, may I have that motion to enter Exhibit 11 and 12?
Taken a motion.
Motion made by Vice Chair Castillo, seconded by
Second.
Chief Taylor. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. So we have our exhibits added to the official record. And what we have before us tonight is the opera budget proposed by the mayor. We've heard arts, tourism, and hospitality. We did, I think, city services. Diana, help me.
I would love to talk to you about this a little bit, Chairwoman. So I do know, so we did do arts, tourism, and hospitality. We started city services and infrastructure and sustainability.
Yes.
I know Craig was here to talk, do a broader stormwater presentation, which is part of the packet. I don't know if today's discussion sufficed for that. And then also Jim Silveria was going to do a presentation along with Montserrat Toon on infrastructure, IT infrastructure and cybersecurity. And then the last item from City Service and Infrastructure that we did not get to talk about was the Parks and Recreation Capital Fund, which I know that Director Wilson Superintendent of Parks had put forward that presentation as well as part of the package.
So let's try to accomplish that. Who wants to lead off? You get to pick.
Okay, let's do it. I don't know, Jim, do you want to start? I know his presentation is short and sweet.
Jim, you're up.
All right, thank you. Okay.
You're taking too long, Jim. No, I'm teasing you.
Looking around here. All right, so this is exciting. So we have a unique opportunity here to do some serious work on our cybersecurity posture and make some improvements in our city services here. I want to jump to where we're going to focus our efforts. Number one, I think this is going to be a hugely important tool for the council, for the public, and for the city departments such as myself. We're looking at a budget and data management portal. This is a commercial product. It went before the Board of Contract back in January. We're trying to get a head start on getting things ready. This is a system that's going to link to Lawson, which is our financial system. We're going to grab all of the payments on projects through our ARPA funds and categorize them, assign them to projects, and put them out on a public portal for everybody to see. This was something that we presented in our public hearings. We had some community groups in. We received a lot of support for that. I've heard over and over from this committee that you're looking for better reporting. This will give us an opportunity to put every dollar we spend in those accounts out on a public portal. Additionally, there are project pages, so we'll be able to highlight some of the individual projects, whether it's a construction project, cybersecurity, Wi-Fi, some of the other great work that we're doing across the city, and dedicate their own page to what's going on in that project, including narrative, photos, updates, and how we're spending those funds. Well, that's exciting. That's something we're really looking to get up and running as soon as our funds are approved. We've been working with the vendor. We've got a lot of the preliminary work figured out. In other areas, we're looking to improve our physical security in our buildings, around our data centers. This involves some upgrades in 444 Westminster Street in our server center. We're looking to make some improvements in our data security and how we store our data on our servers, how we replicate it, and create an off-site copy of our most important, most critical operations and data. And then we're also looking at a citywide cash sharing system. This is something that's been an ongoing request from a number of departments over the past 10 years. So jumping ahead, this is what we're going to be able to produce.
Jim, can I just ask you, I know the citywide cash sharing system has been a real hot topic and a big wish list item. Could you just explain real briefly what that will do? What does that mean for the resident?
Well, right now, part of this is on city services, part of this is on our cybersecurity and financial security. Okay, we've got between 10 and 20 different ways to collect dollars from the public. This is whether it's a contractor coming in to request a permit, someone coming in to request a birth certificate, a business license, going down to DPW, paying fees, going to our courts, paying fees and things there. So we collect a lot of money, a lot of different ways across the city. And it seems that every department over the years has developed their own way of doing it. And some of them are very good, but some of them have some room for improvement. So we're looking to go to RFP, find a, again, a commercial platform, something that's been proven in municipal systems that we can customize for the types of sales that we conduct in the city. This will allow residents to see, the same account when they go to request a birth certificate, pay a parking ticket, pay something in our courts, even do some of our online transactions. Everything will flow through the same cash sharing system. It'll, do a great deal of improvements in our financial reportings and transparency, and help us get a better handle on securing transactions across the city departments.
Not to mention cash management. So that's great. Good for you. Thank you. Please continue.
Okay. Another area we're looking at, I have up on this slide, is hardware security and redundancy. This will fund the purchase of a number of new servers and redundant hosting hardware. This is something critical where we're reading this in the news every day, where businesses, cities, organizations, hospitals are all being hit by cyber attacks. They're being held captive by ransomware. We have a fairly good system in place. We have a lot of manual processes to replicate our data and remove it offsite, store secure copies. We're looking to automate this. There's, again, some industry standard platforms that are out there. These are commercial products that we can buy that will allow us to continue to securely host our data, our applications, our databases, and our city services, and be able to replicate those services to continue hosting city business in the event of an emergency, a power failure, or some type of cyber attack. Another area that we're looking at is physical security improvements, and particularly in our 444 Westminster Street office, where we host a good deal of our data systems. Right now, we have somewhat of a shared space that started off as a very, very large server room. We use a tiny fraction of that, and there's a lot of other activity going on in those areas. So we're looking to physically wall off and enclose our data center, add secure access to our data center, and improve the environmental operations. Right now, again, we're running off the air conditioning system that was built out probably 30 years ago to host roughly one half of a floor of that building is air conditioned to cool roughly 4 racks of the data that we require. So we could be seeing some significant savings in electricity and our utility costs and maintenance by moving to a small enclosed environment that we can better manage. So there will be an upfront cost of doing this, but going forward, we will be seeing some savings from these.
Wonderful. Is that it?
That's a very high level view of the projects that we're looking at.
Okay. Committee members, any questions? I have a question for you, Jim. Is 2.5 million enough to get you where you need to be? I think this is an immediate, appropriate immediate need step, but does it get us down the road? How far down the road does it get us? Should we be investing more, I guess is the question.
Well, what I'm looking at, this is a total project budget of 1.4 million, okay? The cybersecurity is split into 2 groups. There's the IT operations on our side, where I'm looking at the project dashboard for ARPA projects, physical security, some server redundancy. And we feel that the funds that we've requested will sufficiently cover those projects with the staff and in the time that we have. We feel that we'll be able to spend that money within this given time. So there's another portion of the cybersecurity program that Montserrat O'Toole will be presenting on at some point. She has some other programs focusing more on cybersecurity policy and training that she'll be able to present.
Okay. Tonight, right now?
No,
No.
Unfortunately, Chairwoman, I understand that Montserrat is out, but she has provided, the slide deck is in the packet of 313, and she provides some good detail on that program, but she's not available right now to speak to it.
That's fine. I can see the presentation. And I think that the council can certainly, we can ask any questions we need to follow up. I just want to make sure that that 2.5 number for that line item is appropriate. Can you testify that that's what your needs are for now in the immediate future? I just don't want to be selling, I think this is an important item. I think cybersecurity is critical, as well as making sure our IT is up and running and appropriate to address the challenges of the future. It doesn't seem like a big investment, Jim. I had expected more. So please tell me why that is just 2.5 million and you're comfortable with it if that's the case.
Well, I can tell you, this certainly covers the projects that we have planned and for what we can do in the foreseeable future over the next 5 years or so. We do have an ongoing operating budget, which covers the majority of our existing security systems, our perimeter defenses, our network security, our staff. We're in a great position now with the staff that we have. So I feel overall our security posture is very, very good. And we'll be able to maintain what we have for our operating budget. This additional funds is really going to help us get ahead and put us in a very, very good spot for the foreseeable future. So I believe this is sufficient to cover our needs.
Thank you, sir. I don't see any other hands up. Thank you for your presentation. Can we get the screen back?
Jim, can you release the screen?
Thank you, Jim, for releasing the screen. And thanks for your presentation. Greatly appreciate it. Okay, up next, Diana, I think it's Park Recreational. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Yay, hi, nice to see everyone. Thank you for having us. So this presentation was, our allocation was for parks and recreation infrastructure, our capital fund infrastructure. So we worked with recreation to look at what facilities, outdoor facilities we could improve for everyone. And also DEMO in public property has a piece at the end of this as well. So,
is DEMO with us tonight? Is he here? No, okay. Continue, Wendy.
Can I share my screen?
Yes. Well, could you? I had asked the clerk for that.
Great, thank you. Everyone see that?
Yeah. Yes.
So all of the projects that we're proposing, these are ones that really round out our portfolio. We have funding for a good number of projects going forward where we'll actually be able to address by the end of this term most of the deficiencies in our parks and make most of our parks incredibly outstanding. So they also will provide multi-generational year-round expanded outdoor learning, camp, art, conservation, history programs, and recreation opportunities in public parks. All projects support Providence Recreation Department's programs and infrastructure, and most projects are within the qualified census tract. Those that are not address increased usage during the pandemic. So the first piece is adapting parks to the new normal. As you know, Providence is home to over 120 parks and open spaces. It's about 10% of our acreage in the city of Providence is public park space. And during COVID, parks use increased 2 to 4 times what it was previous to that. But that also exposes deficiencies that we aim to fix. Our goal is to address these issues and provide parks that meet the expanded needs of the new normal, and to, in particular, address the interface between the neighborhoods and the parks. So challenge one is, at a time when we want to draw people into the parks more than ever and give them an escape from quarantine and what have you, the fencing looks more like an off-putting stockade around our parks. And this is an example of before and after of what a difference, what this kind of fencing, this chain link is around our parks. And that's just, it looks awful. And it looks to the kids who are going into those spaces that no one cares. And for people who are in those, it says, I'm safe here behind this chain link and I can do whatever. So by changing this perimeter around our parks, it has a great impact on the neighborhood, the look and feel of the park, even with all the work done in it. So it's become our new standard. And I think you've seen it in many parks around the city now, but there are others that really need to be addressed as well. Challenge two is that that the increased usage has placed a strain on some of the infrastructure that's critical for recreation and safety. And also several parks need playgrounds for younger visitors and some playgrounds for old, and and some are just unappealing. So here's some examples. This is one of our parks that one of the last ones we did this year. And that's the after and the before and the after of Brown Street Park. The one on this side is Annie Morris Tot Lot. Here's another example. This is Morris Ave before and after. That type of impact that it makes on a community. This is a passive park before and after. This is Columbus Square. Challenge three is that we have thousands of people visiting the Michael Van Leesten Bridge every day. And we need to supply the bridge in such a way that we have what we call attic stock, so that things that we can easily replace when there is damage to the bridge. There also need to be some modifications for access to the lights so that we can take full use of those. So that is also included here as well. Here's an example of some of the things that we want to do on the bridge to make sure that those amenities are protected and also look really cool for years to come. So what we are proposing here is commercial grade welded wire fencing for around 6 playgrounds to enhance curb appeal. We're going to revitalize playgrounds at 7 parks. And again, these are parks that we don't have any current funding for. So we have a lot of things in the queue, but these are ones that don't have that. Forgive me, it's getting really, really cold in the office here. I think that he turned off a little while ago. So I'm a little numb. There's a little shakiness in my voice. That's just cold. And some of our passive parks as well that just haven't been a priority prior to the sorts of usage that we found through COVID, and also retrofitting the Michael Van Leesten Bridge. These are some of the parks that we're proposing for the fencing. That's a total of $205,000. The playgrounds, $465,000, and other improvements to some of these spaces are $110,000. The next piece is water park improvements, and this is a real partnership between parks and recreation, as they're staffed by recreation, but parks maintains them. This year alone, we did 48 service calls to our water parks to repair aging infrastructure that, a lot of it has been, some of it's 30 or 40 years old. So right now, 85% of the water parks, spray grounds have antiquated infrastructure and lack play appeal. They're just boring. And 12 water parks serve all of Providence. 2 are new and in excellent condition, and 3 will be revitalized as part of full park revitalizations, and 7 are in dire need of upgrades and renovations to make them attractive, sustainable, and fun destinations. And as you know, we're trying to make water parks integrated into the park, so they're just not in a box on concrete with a chain link fence around them for 7 weeks, active for 7 weeks each summer. We want them to be fully accessible all year long. There's also the issue of shade and enhance tree canopy, and also putting in shade structures in some of these as well. And you can see the concentration here of heat in South and West Providence, and also the lack of tree canopy in those areas. So these are things that we want to also address in our water parks. Here is an example of the before and after at Bargnoli. That we should be the standard across the city for all of our parks. So we are going to redesign 7 water parks to include sustainable materials, multiple shade and fabric shade areas, permeable surfaces, reclaimed materials, and public art in some of our underserved neighborhoods. And then we're also going to be able to designate space for trees and other vegetation to provide shade and cooling and help filter pollutants and capture stormwater and all that good stuff that we do so well. And this is the total budget for the parks that we are looking into doing that for, around 800,000. The last piece of this is outdoor recreation expansion. We have done an amazing number of ball fields and basketball courts, but we have a few remaining. Oh, I got ahead of myself here. We're talking about one of the things that we've had a really big hit on the past couple of years is outdoor fitness areas, and there are currently 11 in our Providence parks, and we are aiming to add a couple more. They are just proven invaluable to people of all ages to use our outdoor fitness areas. The National Parks and Recreation Association reported that 83% of adults found exercising at local parks essential during COVID, and Providence was no different than that. We also aim to reach adults and seniors as well as more youth. So here are some things that we're proposing: reflexology as outdoor fitness for some of our seniors. The fitness center on the right is one that's at Brown Street Park, very similar to the one at Dexter and Columbia Parks. On any given night, in any kind of any time of year, there's lots of people building community around these spaces, and it's been really lovely to see, and we want more. And then the last piece here is that what I was mentioning about fields, but 2 of the most used fields in the city don't have irrigation. It makes it hard to sustain them after quite a significant amount of play. So we also aim to enhance the sustainability of our athletic fields with irrigation and being able to put them on a program for maintenance like our other fields. This is an example of the impact of that kind of work, Tim O'Neill Field before and after. And we are looking to do this work at Obadiah Brown and George West Fields, both of which get an incredible amount of use, but again, are not able to be fully maintained without irrigation upgrades to these systems. The outdoor fitness, they're a relatively big bang for a low buck, I think, is around 80,000. The ball fields around 150. And then that's it for the parks and recreation piece of it.
Any questions, committee members? No? Oh, I see Councilman Anthony.
I would just like to thank Wendy. Are you finished with your presentation, Wendy, or?
I am. I apologize. I am so cold.
I know. I think you should go home and warm up. This is outstanding, is all I have to say, and I wanted to thank you. This is very exciting.
Councilman Goncalves?
Thank you, Chairwoman Ryan. Superintendent Nielsen, I just want to also thank you for your leadership. I could listen to you talk about this for hours, and your department is doing some extraordinary work. And to see these before and after photos are testament to the great work that your department does to transform our communities in a way that's inviting and beneficial for our children and families. So I just really want to thank you for all of your work.
Thank you. That means a lot. And I'm looking forward to coming back to the Finance Committee to show you our annual report that we presented to the Board of Park Commissioners that is much more impactful than this. This is a case to be made for projects that are going forward, but the ones that our team have been able to accomplish, particularly over the past couple of years, have been pretty tremendous. And we're very, very proud, and we're very, very grateful for your support.
Well, again, thank you for all that you do. Can't thank you enough.
Well, sec, Councilman. Okay, I'd like to say, Wendy, thank you very much for all you do for the city of Providence. You are absolutely amazing. You're one of our finest departments and certainly one of our most effective directors. So thank you for that. Couple of questions I have, and I know in working with you that lighting, graffiti, security issues have been concerns at some of our parks. So how are we dealing with that? And is this budget addressing any of those concerns?
This budget does not address lighting for all of the projects that we're working on, either through private funding, through grants, through CDGB, through NIF funding, through all of which we're doing in partnership with the council. Many of those projects do have lighting in them. Some of them in some areas also have security cameras where it's been advised by the community, by the council, usually a combination of both, that is advisable, working that into the budgets of those bigger projects.
So you feel as though those issues are addressed in other funding pools?
I do for those. There may be a case here and there that might come up, but I think generally speaking, lighting in particular is slightly. There are a couple sides to lighting in parks. Some it benefits, some the neighbors. It impacts the neighbors. Some it's. Now I think my brain is frozen, sorry. And sometimes it is an absolute deterrent. And so working with the community to figure out where that is the best. We put security lights in Peace and Plenty, and the neighbors that was not something in the end that they actually wanted to live with after petitioning for that for a while. So it takes some balance, and it's not something that we do in every park, but where it's needed, we try to find the resources to do it.
Thank you for that answer. I see Steve Piscopello has his hand up, so we're going to move him from an attendee over. Love to allow him to speak, if that's possible, Madam Clerk.
Hopefully. Yeah, coming on over.
He's coming over. He's running over. Mr. Piscopello, welcome. I saw your hand up. Do you want to interject your thoughts? You have any comments, questions, concerns?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I just wanted to echo what Wendy had to say. I'm the person that usually goes to the water parks when they're down. In the last couple of years, we've been pretty much every day. Some days not being able to keep them all open at the same time, and it's long overdue where we need repairs and the necessary changes to the parks to make them more vibrant. That's for sure. When they first came out, it was an idea, but it was a new idea, and I think you got to bring it to the next level. And Wendy is proving that's the case. And I just wanted to echo what she had to say about the ballparks. Our ballparks use probably 30-40% more than any other municipality. They take a beating on a regular basis, and the plans to obviously the number one thing is irrigation. And like I said, I just want to echo her thoughts because in the job that they're doing, the parks are in much better shape for sure. And I just wanted to add my 2 cents to the conversation because how important it is to all these organizations, when they call, they're looking for fields and they're looking for time. And we've been able to accommodate them, and I'm sure we will in the future. So that's it from me. I just wanted to add my 2 cents to the conversation.
Thank you for doing that. Thank you, Wendy. I just want to make sure $2 million in this budget is enough for you. Do you want to testify to that? Is $2 million sufficient to accomplish your goals?
I will say, Steve, if you want to talk about, there's 250 of this in here for public property. If you want to walk through that, or do they want to wait for Demo to do that piece?
I think that had more to do, Diana, correct me if I'm wrong. Does that have to do with the Elmwood project? So I'm not really familiar with the Elmwood Community Center project. And
okay, we'll sneak that in when Demo's here. It's not fair. Let's leave that for another day. It's getting late. I think that's a wrap on Wendy's piece. What else do we have? Thank you very much, Wendy. Run home, run around your office and get warm. Steve, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Diana, what's up next? Do you have anything next?
So no, I know. So Craig was on the line earlier to go over the sewer and stormwater presentation for the next ordinance. I know that's included in your packet. I know he mentioned a little bit today as we were talking about ordinance 2. So I'm sorry, schedule 1 of the ARPA ordinance. But that would have been the only other presentation to do today to wrap up the infrastructure and sustainability buckets.
And Craig is not with us anymore, correct?
He's not on the line any longer.
Let's wrap it up. It's getting very late.
Chairwoman, absolutely, Chairman. I have a question for you. I know that I am back up on the agenda for Thursday. So I would be happy to line up whichever presentations the committee would like and make sure that the right folks attend. I know I don't know that anyone was provided or anyone was invited to Thursday's meeting. So if you'd like me to work on one portion to make sure, a section of the American Rescue Plan, second ordinance or second Schedule 2 of the ordinance is put forward, if there's any preference, I'm happy to, accommodate whatever you would like us to do for Thursday.
I'll have that conversation with you before the meeting, okay? We'll look at where we're at and where we need to be and who's available, all right? I think that's wrapped, folks. I don't see any other my committee members with any hands up, so I'd like to, I think, continue this item, right, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Motion to continue item 3, made by.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Made by, okay, Vice Chair makes the motion, seconded by Leader Taylor. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Item 3 is continued. May I have a motion to adjourn? Motion made by Vice Chair.
So moved and second.
Okay, Leader
Second.
Taylor makes that motion. Vice Chair Castillo seconds. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you all. Diana, thank you. This was a great, great evening. We had a lot of testimony. I think it illuminated a lot of hard work that has been happening, and I really appreciate your effort.
Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate being able to speak with you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief
Good night,
Mancini,
everybody.
always good to have you in the house.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pleasure to be here.
CFO, you
safe,
did very
everybody.
well tonight.
Yep. Everybody
He was
else
monitoring.
did their job. Thank you.
That's the way it should be, right? Thank you all.
Have a good
Good evening.